William was 20 minutes late, and once he finally took his seat, he didn't offer any explanation. He focused on pouring himself a cup of tea, savoring it sip by sip. Crystal, seeing his indifferent behavior, became furious. She asked in a stern tone, "Can you really enjoy your tea like nothing happened? I'm asking you, when are you going to get a divorce?" William sighed, putting on a seemingly honest appearance, with an embarrassed expression. "Crystal, I really can't do anything about it. Zoe has a tight grip on the hardware store, and she insists on not giving me any money. What can I do? After all, the hardware store has always been her business, and I don't understand anything. I can't just take away half of the hardware items, can I?" Crystal retorted, "But you didn't say this before. You promised to divorce your wife and be with me no matter what. Now that I've divorced for you, you're still hesitating. What are you thinking?" William sighed again, portraying himself as a simple and awkward person. "Crystal, I really don't know what to do. Zoe is holding on to the hardware store, and she won't let go. She insists that there's no money to give me. What can I do? I can't just take away half of the hardware items." Crystal deflated at his response. She thought about it and realized that William was being controlled by his wife because of the property issue. It was understandable, considering the substantial amount of money involved, which would impact their quality of life together. She rested her head on the table, feigning a tearful voice. "William, I'm under a lot of pressure now. Every day after the divorce feels like I'm a gambler. William, you can't let me lose, can you? Go back and negotiate with Zoe again. The hardware store is difficult to divide, but there are other properties she can use to compensate. Why can't she understand that?" William shook his head. "I initiated the divorce, and Zoe is holding on to this grudge. Nothing can be done. The house was bought by her before marriage, so it's impossible to get a share. I just have to wait for the money, but she doesn't have any. She said she would divorce when she saves enough money to give me, or I can give up the property." Facing this dilemma, Crystal felt helpless. What else could she do but wait? "Well, you should come to live with me after work from now on. Let's see how long Zoe can endure," Crystal suggested. William nodded obediently. "Okay, I'll do that." Crystal was somewhat satisfied with William's compliance, gradually easing her worries. After William moved in, he rarely stayed at home. He worked in a classified unit, often on a rotating shift, spending most of his time sleeping in the factory. Crystal could tolerate this part, but what she couldn't tolerate was that William still maintained a close connection with his almost ex-wife, Zoe. One evening, when William finally came home for dinner, he had just taken a bite of noodles when the phone rang. It was Zoe, saying there was a water leak upstairs, and the ceiling at home was flooded. She asked him to go back and negotiate with the upstairs neighbors. Without saying much, William finished a bowl of noodles and went back. A few days later, Zoe called again, saying that some relatives had come to their hometown, and he needed to go back to show his face. This happened repeatedly, and it seemed like there was always something important or minor holding William back on Zoe's end. Crystal didn't know if it was intentional or not. Crystal was helpless in this situation. Although they were at the stage of divorce and property division, it hadn't been finalized, and it was still an internal conflict. There was no need to stir up more trouble and involve others, as per William's suggestion. The only one feeling distressed was Crystal. Sometimes she felt like she was flying a kite, fearing that William might get caught in the branches at any moment. The more she thought about it, the more upset she became. What was going on with Zoe? Shouldn't she treat William as an adversary at this point? Why would she still want to see him? As for William, if someone asked him to go back and do something, did he have to comply? Then why be so obedient in this situation? Wasn't that contradicting his infidelity? Crystal suddenly thought, could it be, they didn't want a divorce? 2 days later, Zoe surprisingly approached Crystal to confirm this speculation. It was the first time the two women met, and Crystal prepared herself for a confrontation, but Zoe seemed surprisingly calm. Looking at Zoe somewhat arrogantly, Crystal asked directly, "William actually doesn't want a divorce. When we talked about it, he told me he regretted it in a moment of impulse." Crystal continued, "So what? Why are you telling me all this? Are you planning to reconcile with him?" Zoe replied, "Who knows? I'm busy every day and don't have time for these trivial matters. I came here today just to tell you the truth. Whether you want to wait for him or not, it's up to you to decide." Crystal was almost infuriated. After Zoe left, Crystal frantically called William, but no one answered. She sent several WeChat messages, but not a single reply. In fact, she had vaguely sensed that something was wrong with William, as if it started from the day she told him about her divorce. She recalled William's expression that day, a mix of shock, fear, and helplessness. At that moment, she felt uneasy, but the overwhelming excitement of starting a new life overshadowed the signals her intuition was sending. Now, looking back, that expression seemed to convey the awkwardness of, "I was just talking, why did you take it seriously?" Could it be that she had been deluding herself from the beginning? Was William, a married man, just looking for a fling with another married woman? Crystal felt incredibly upset. Her ex-husband was rough, with a troublesome mother behind him, a bunch of boundaryless relatives around, and a temper that couldn't be controlled, coupled with incompetence in bed. Initially, they got together through an arranged meeting, and their marriage was far from perfect. Later, she met William at work, attracted by his stability, gentleness, and reliability. One was proactive, the other didn't refuse, and they ended up together inexplicably. William was like her escape route. Because of this route, she had the courage and confidence to take a step forward, ending that unhappy marriage herself. The divorce process was challenging, as her ex-husband resisted and made everything difficult for her. He even hired someone to follow Crystal, capturing her and William in bed, and recorded a video. Indeed, the green hat was the exclamation point in a man's marriage. It instantly shattered the relationship into pieces, leaving two people with a dirty kind of freedom. For the divorce, Crystal paid a hefty price: mental torture, damage to her reputation, loss of postmarital property, and a substantial hush money to buy the video from her ex-husband. She had put herself in a desperate situation, expecting William to give her a new life. However, this man only talked the talk, and after all this time, there was still no resolution. Could it be that he was a freeloader as rumored? Fuming with anger, she thought, "Damn it, men are all no good, just in different degrees of rottenness." Crystal cautiously didn't fully believe Zoe's words, silently setting a deadline for William in her mind: 1 more month. However, a month quickly passed, and William still gave the same excuse: Zoe had no money, just wait a little longer. Crystal's heart turned cold, and she decided to give up. But she couldn't let William off scot-free. Both sought excitement together, but she paid the price, while William continued to live a comfortable life. Where in the world does such a good deal exist? Even if she didn't want anything from him, even if she would have left sooner or later without William, he happened to come along. If that's the case, he must compensate her. Crystal confronted William, expressing her decision to end things. William was shocked and remained silent for a while. Eventually, he carefully said, "I'm sorry, Crystal. I know you're aggrieved, but I genuinely want to be with you. It's just that giving up that money is hard for me. Can you give me a little more time?" Crystal remembered Zoe's words and felt a surge of frustration. "Isn't the time I've given you already enough? I'm not a young girl in her 20s. My youth has only a little tail left, and every day is precious to me. I can't waste them all on a hope that seems endless." William sighed repeatedly. I understand. It's my fault." Crystal coldly laughed. "Knowing that it's your fault is enough, William. I divorced because I was influenced by you. Now that everything is gone, you should take responsibility." William seemed to finally realize. "So, what do you want to do?" He indeed caved in. He had been waiting for her to say these words for a long time. Crystal's heart surged with hatred, and she boldly stated, "Give me 500,000. I spent a lot of money buying that video from my ex-husband. In the video, both of us are naked and clearly visible. If it gets out, you can forget about working at the company. Give me the money, and I'll give you the video, ensuring no future troubles." After a moment of shock, William nodded pitifully. A few days later, Crystal received the money from William. When she saw the dazzling figure, her heart finally settled. Regardless of everything, at least William didn't default, and he was still a man. Given that, she decided to destroy the video in front of him, settling the matter once and for all. However, to Crystal's surprise, a few days after destroying the video, she received a cold lawsuit. Zoe was demanding 500,000 as marital property. Her once calm heart shattered into pieces. She gritted her teeth, realizing that William's quick agreement to give her 500,000 was just a ploy to get the video. The couple had planned a move in advance. Crystal wished she could time travel and drag William out of his workplace to tear him apart. But she knew such an act would be meaningless. Because William hadn't divorced yet, the 500,000 was originally their marital property, and Zoe's demand was reasonable and legal. Crystal called William and vented her anger. William defended himself, saying, "I didn't intend to reclaim that money, and I don't know what's wrong with Zoe." Crystal sneered, "You don't know? If you don't want to give me 500,000, just say so. Why give it and then want it back? That's too despicable. So, both of you plan to deceive me from the beginning, right? Is that appropriate? William also got angry. Crystal, it's not fun when you put it this way. This has nothing to do with me. Zoe is Zoe, and I am me. Don't create chaos and falsely accuse me of things I'm not responsible for. Crystal laughed out of frustration. This married couple was like a comedy duo, one with a straight face and the other blushing. She felt like a clown, caught in the middle, losing both her body and money. If she didn't seek revenge for this, she would never be able to sleep peacefully in this lifetime. William continued to escalate. Crystal, do you not understand how we ended up here step by step? When we started, we both knew about each other's families and willingly got involved. Later, when you said you wanted a divorce, I said I would try, but I never promised to divorce you for sure. The day we had a date, you were not cautious enough, bringing your ex-husband's tale along, which led to him filming the video. That was your fault, and I'm also a victim. I was willing to divorce for you, but you couldn't wait and insisted on breaking up with me. I agreed to break up, and now you want money using that video, asking for 500,000. After I gave you 500,000, you blamed me for the lawsuit, which Zoe found out about. Crystal, everything is here. What did I do wrong? Crystal said slowly, your only mistake is pretending to be affectionate and fooling me, not straightforwardly telling me that being with me was just for fun. All the troubles we had together are products of your hypocrisy and cowardice. After saying that, she hung up the phone, leaned back on the chair in despair, and looked blankly at the ceiling. Afterward, she made up her mind, took out her phone, and exported a video from her private album. Yes, when she destroyed the video initially, she left a backup. After some simple editing to cover her face, she unhesitatingly sent the video through various channels and tagged William's workplace official account. Crystal thought that she had saved this video with a bit of guilt at first, feeling like she had deceived William. Looking back now, she was grateful she kept it. Destroy it, the whole world. If William had complaints, it was his own fault for being too foolish. After completing this big task, Crystal blocked William, bought a train ticket, and left with minimal luggage. In another city, she monitored her WeChat group every day. The explicit video was quickly banned from all platforms due to its explicit content. However, this didn't matter much because most people who wanted to watch it had already seen it. She didn't know what fate awaited William, but social death was certain. With such clear explicit content, his honest and unattractive face, his unbearable physique, his vulgar and shameless conversation, and his short, little William, were enough to turn him into a joke. Crystal released her resentment and malice, feeling relieved. She spent 100,000 buying this video from her ex-husband, so she considered it as spending 100,000 for some amusement. No matter how bad it gets, life goes on. She laughed for a while, satisfied and relieved. Then she transferred the 500,000 back to William's account. She didn't want to go through the legal process, and she didn't want to see William's face again. To hell with him. Crystal returned to the city where the video controversy had long been forgotten. One weekend, while strolling on the street, she unexpectedly ran into Zoe. She didn't want to acknowledge Zoe, but Zoe walked straight over and stopped her. After a moment's thought, considering the current situation, Crystal didn't owe Zoe anything. She straightened her back and walked over. Zoe smiled. Hey, do you know where William is now? Crystal replied coldly, I don't know. Zoe continued, he got fired from his job because of that video, and we also got divorced. I haven't heard from him since. Crystal retorted, none of my business. With a sly smile, Zoe said, well, it's not entirely unrelated to you. Initially, I lied to you about some things. In reality, he did want to divorce me and marry you. However, I was too angry at the time and didn't want to let you two have your way. So, I kept using the excuse of bad property division, intentionally provoking you. Is that so? Crystal's heart shook, but she maintained her composure on the surface. Zoe continued, later, when you got genuinely angry and demanded 500,000 as a breakup fee, he agreed to give up dividing other property just to give you that money. At the time, I didn't know his intention behind taking that money. I thought he had a change of heart, considering my feelings. Later, I realized I was wrong. He did all of this for you. I was angry and sued you. We even had a big fight over this. Crystal trembled, saying, stop talking, I don't want to hear. Zoe looked at Crystal with pity. If I had known you still had that little video and had such a fiery temper, I wouldn't have sued you. Oh well, I didn't intend for this situation with William to turn out like this. Our marriage was not my original intention. I just wanted to tease you a bit. Crystal felt a pang in her chest. Zoe shook her head. William, he's a bit honest, he has affairs. But if you say he's not honest, he's a bit naive, too trusting, especially with women. Anyway, I have things to do. I'll be leaving now. Crystal watched Zoe walk away and quickly took out her phone to unblock William. However, the next second, she realized that she had already been blocked by William. She held the phone, recalling William's usual clumsy, sincere, and bewildered appearance. At this moment, she deeply regretted ever knowing him. Only now did she understand that they had unintentionally played pranks on each other and been played by each other all along. Two fools shouldn't have gone astray together, and they definitely shouldn't have entangled each other. But now, there was no turning back. They had shattered each other's lives, turning their shared past into ruins.